My name is Gavin Cooper, and this is a pre-recorded presentation for the 2022 meeting of the Society for Mathematical Psychology. People make decisions throughout their life, big decisions on who to vote for or whether or not to get surgery, or small decisions like, am I going to eat a chocolate bar or am I going to eat some fruit? Now, oftentimes these decisions are studied in terms of what the different attributes of these options are and how much each attribute informs the final choice. But what I'm interested in is something quite different. I'm interested in how the attribute information is processed and combined to form the final choice. So I've got an initial task here, and it is just presenting a hotel option over and over again, varying the values on the two attributes. And in this first task, I've given the participants a couple of criteria. They need to be picking hotels that are less than $500 and more than some 50% quality rating. So these could be a particularly bad hotel here, which is over the $500 mark and less than the 50% rating. Ones that fail on just one of the two attributes, or ones that succeed on both attributes. This is less than $500 and greater than 50% rating. And I've varied these attribute values according to certain distributions both above or below the criteria that I've given the participants. And the way these attributes are combined to form the overall reaction time for the participants' data will let me tease apart which kind of way of combining the pieces of information, the attributes together, the participants have chosen. Something that struck me early on in this research was that people, at least our undergrads, did not really follow the instructions particularly well, with a large number of people knocked out because they weren't able to hit an 80% cutoff for accuracy on this first task. But for those that do, we've got some interesting modelling results to show you. So the way I've set up these models is to model both attributes using two evidence accumulation models, in particular linear ballistic accumulators, one towards accepting the option based on that attribute value, and one towards rejecting the option based off that attribute value. And the same thing for the other attribute type. And then what I've done is combined these individual LBA accumulators into certain arrangements in order to try and tease apart different possible ways of processing the underlying information. So this top left-hand one here, we're either accepting if either one of the two attributes reaches threshold first and rejecting if both reach the reject threshold. And this bottom right-hand one, we're accepting if both of the accept attribute accumulators reach threshold and rejecting if either one of the reject hit threshold. I've also got two more setups here. One where if either of the accept accumulators hits threshold, then we accept, and same for reject. And the opposite of that, where both accept accumulators have to reach threshold to accept, and both reject accumulators have to reach threshold to reject. And then there's this final combination, coactive, where the drift rate for the accumulators is combined in terms of trying to tease apart scenarios where the information from the attributes is combined earlier in the decision-making process, and then some kind of weighted average of the attribute values is used to determine the either accept or reject decision. So I've modeled this using the particle metropolis within Gibbs sampler. The way I've done this is each of the 5 architectures that I outlined previously are set up as a possible choice from a Dirichlet function. So we sample from a Dirichlet function, and then whichever one is selected, the setup for the arrangement of the different accumulators informs how the drift parameters and threshold parameters are applied, and then we move on to the next sample from our sampler. Now we've gotten some interesting results from this veridical data. So by veridical, I've told these participants exactly what rule they should be applying and exactly what criteria they should be applying. They were informed that they were making decisions on behalf of another person that had given them explicit criteria and an explicit rule set. So this first group here were told that they had to accept the hotel if and only if both attributes met the criteria they were given. So less than $500, greater than 50%. And then that means they can reject if either one of them fails to meet that criteria. And we can see here that this matches this independent exhaustive IEX architecture quite well, and all of the people that were able to successfully implement the rule, hit that 80% criteria, were selected by the model as actually using that architecture. We had another subset of people that were given the opposite rule. They were told they needed to reject the hotel if and only if both of the attributes failed to meet criteria. So greater than $500 and less than 50%, they were to reject. Otherwise, if either of those was a good attribute, they could accept. And when we have a look at their data and attempt to model their data, we see that those that were able to successfully complete the task using those kind of rule sets were determined to have this IST architecture that matches that kind of rule set. So this was great news. Our model seems to be recovering a particular instructed rule that we've given to participants. We've also done some simulation studies. So take a median of all parameters for the accumulators, generate some data that matches the independent self-terminating, for instance, up the top, and then try and recover that, and we get most, if not all, people recovering that particular architecture, and similarly for all 5 of the architecture types being able to be recovered properly. So that's the work so far. I have also started work on a preferential task where we've tried to experimentally determine an individual's threshold and then manipulate some values in the latter half of the experiment, kind of above or below that particular threshold. And that's something I hope to present at a future conference. But for now, thank you very much.